Okay guys, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start looking at widgets or the heads-up display or the HUD, so that when these drones that we've got flying around, when they catch up to us, there's something we'll display to say that it's kind of game over, we've been captured, or whatever you want it to say. When we get to a point that we need to get to, something will pop up, and on the screen we can have like an objective there, or like a quest, or whatever you want to call it. So we use these things called widgets, which is like an overlay over the screen. So before we start, we're going to go to our content folder. We're going to make a new folder and I'm going to call it UI for the user interface. Okay. And in there, I'm going to import in from the starter files for the project, from the description in the video. Where's it going to be? Downloads, first game assets, this one. So I've got a captured and escaped image. So we open those. So these are going to be used as part of our widgets, essentially. So ones you've been captured and ones you've escaped. I created those in Photoshop very simply, but if you've got any image editing software that you can use, you can create whatever you want to go there. So also within here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to select user interface and widget blueprint and user widget. So this is going to be what we're going to use for, first of all, we're going to do it for the main heads-up display, the main HUD that we use is always going to be there. So we're going to call it main HUD. Okay, I'm going to double click it. And what we need first of all to start is like a canvas for the screen so that we can see where the screen area is. So if we go over here to the search, we're going to search for canvas and you'll see canvas panel. So I'm going to drag that onto here. Excuse me, and then you'll see this kind of green outline. This is what the screen is going to be. You kind of need that first of all so that we know where we're going to be placing all of our elements. So I'm going to close that down. This is where, if your character had health or like, I don't know, skill points, or you had abilities, or stuff like that, you could all go onto your HUD on the overlay, or you had like a specific amount of ammo, that kind of thing. It can all go into the HUD. We're just keeping it really simple, at least for now, and we're just going to have what the objective is for the player to appear on the screen. So I'm going to bring over a text option and just bring that onto the screen. And then over on the right hand side, you have the settings for it. So where it says text block, I don't want it to say text block, so I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to put here what the objective is. So it's clear to the player what they need to do when they begin playing the game, right? So I'm going to say avoid the drones and reach the, should we call it the extraction point, exclamation mark, enter, something like that. Yours can say whatever you want it to say. There we go. There's some modifications you can do to this. So you can change the color of the text, the opacity. The font by default will only be this Roboto font, but if you want to bring your own fonts into the engine, you can. I'm not going to cover that today though, but it is possible. The size, should we crank that up to about 30? We can adjust that in a bit. And also there's outline settings. So it's also known as the stroke, which is well, I'll add it on and you'll see. So let's make it like a 1. So you can see it kind of gives a black outline to the text. So where would I want that on the screen? Probably somewhere around the top left, up there. To be honest, that text is maybe a bit big. Maybe I will go down to like 24 like it was originally. That's fine. Okay, so that's where it's going to be positioned. In fact, do I want it white? I'll leave it white for now. What we now need to do is anchor this to the screen. So, people are going to be playing your game potentially on different size monitors, stuff like that. So depending on the monitor size, it could change the position of where this is. So what you need to do is go over to anchors up here when you've got the text selected and anchor it to a position on the screen. So for us, ours is kind of over to the left, so I'm going to anchor it to the left like that. That's all we need to do. I'm going to hit compile. That's fine for now. I don't need anything else on my main HUD at the moment. I'm going to close that down. When I push play, my HUD isn't immediately going to appear there. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go up here to this little icon that kind of looks like a flowchart or something. So if we click that, we can get to the level blueprints. So we looked at blueprints individually for individual models when we did the drone, but the level itself has this sort of global blueprint that applies to everything. So if I open that one, what I need to do, notice it doesn't have like a viewport or anything, it's just the event graph because there's no model associated with it, it's for the whole map. So I'm going to right click here, I'm going to go event, begin play. So you may remember from the default ones that were in the event graph for the drone that we did, one of the default ones was event begin play. So that's going to trigger as soon as you start playing the game. So that makes sense for our HUD. We want it to display as soon as we start playing. So all we need to do is go from there and create widget is what you need to type in. And then you choose the widget that you want to actually display. So there's our one, main HUD. And then last thing is go from there and display, sorry, not display, add to viewport. Okay, so it creates the widget we want to create and then adds it to the viewport. All you need to do also do is target needs to go to that return value there. Brilliant. So compile that. That is it. That's all you need to do to display that widget to the screen when the game begins. So I'm going to close that down, push play, and there you go. I can see my text over to the left. White text I think works quite well. You can see that, and you can see how important that outline is. It really makes it more visible, particularly when you're looking at areas where it might just disappear. So again, the player's like, okay, I need to avoid these drones. I need to find the extraction point, which at the moment we haven't created. Cool. So, okay, next thing is going to be when these drones actually get to us, we want it to say we've been captured. Okay, so what we need to do for that is go back to our original drone, which is in our drone folder, and that drone moving blueprint that we created originally. So back to here again. So what we're going to do this time is find a blank space in the graph, select box, that's our collision detection box, right? I'm going to right click and I'm going to add an event for box this time. It's a collision event, and this time when it gets hit, it was the hit one. This time we're going to use begin overlap. So when it begins to overlap our player, it's going to trigger what's going to happen. So on component begin overlap. Right, so what do we want it to be overlapping? That's going to be the player. So cast to first person character, because that's our character's blueprint. Okay, object can go to other actor this time, so it's restricted to only being affected by the character. So yeah, when that happens, we want it to do what we did before. It's going to create a widget. All right, come back to adding it in a second, and then add to viewport. Okay, the only problem is now we don't have the widget that says you've been captured. All right, so when we push compile now, it's going to give us an error. Cool, that's fine. We can fix that. So let's minimize this. Back again to our UI one. I'm just going to minimize that starter content. Back to the UI folder, and we're going to create another user interface called widget blueprint, and we're going to call that what was it? Captured HUD. There we go. Let's open this one. Same as before, we're going to add the canvas, drop it in. This time, instead of adding text, we're going to add an image. So drag image in. Obviously, that's way too small. But before I just resize it properly, I'm going to come over here to where it says brush. Toggle that down, and you can plug an image in to your image, right? So what image do we want? There we go. We want the one called captured. Cool. So now I just need to make sure this is filling the screen. So just carefully adjust that so it fills the screen there. There we go. Cool. Don't forget to anchor it. So we're going to anchor it to the center. In fact, we want to answer, there's a full screen one, so that makes more sense. Anchor it to full screen. Compile that. Close that down. Come back to your drone, okay, where we had this, and now we can plug in the captured HUD, compile it. Oh, just forgot to do that. There we go. Compile that. Okay. Now let's test that out. So if you push play now, let's just allow ourselves to be captured by one of the drones. Boom. So it says you've been captured. Obviously, like because I'm playing in super wide screen, it's all stretched. Let's get rid of that. Let's try that again. So I'm playing the game, allow myself to be captured. And there we go. It says you have been captured. Obviously, that's kind of game over, isn't it? Okay, brilliant. So what do we want to add to that? So let's go back to the UI again. Let's go back to our captured HUD. So we want now a button where we can start again. We can retry. So I'm going to add a button onto this now. There we go. So the button can be kind of there. And we want some text on the button. So I'm going to get a text block and drop it onto the button. And we want that to say retry. That text probably should be black so you can see it. So there's lots of edits you can do to the button. You can change the style and everything, what it's like normally, what it's like when you hover over it, what it's like when you press it. Tons of things you can do. Let's just change that generally to, I don't know, something like that. Whatever. I'll let you play around with that and styling the things like the buttons and the text and everything. We just want to get it working. So we've got a retry button. So we need that to activate something when we push it. So we click the button, scroll down, and then we've got an event. So when it is clicked, plus, okay, so it takes us to an event graph. So when it's clicked, what we want it to do is that we want it to open up our level from the beginning. So I'm going to go open level, and you've got open level by name. At this point, we have to get the exact name of our level. So I'm going to minimize this, go to the content drawer, and we need to find our level to remember where it's stored. First person, here we go, maps. So it's called first person map. All right, so we just need to remember that. Or if you really want, you could probably go, no you can't. I was going to see if we copy and pasted it, we can't. First person map, but it's obviously got a capital for every word. Let's go back to here again. So in here, it's going to be first person map. Okay, so when we click that button, it's just going to reopen our map again. Okay, let's compile that. We've got green. When you are in the widget editing, you can flick up here between designer and graph. Okay. Hopefully, I know this is getting a bit more complex now than it was in the beginning, but hopefully you're feeling a bit more confident with this stuff. Okay, that's fine. The only problem we'll have now, if we play test this, just to show you, is when we push play and go and get captured, the mouse disappears, right? So I can't just get my mouse back, so I can't actually click the retry button. So what we need to do to fix that is go back to the drone, back to the blueprint for that. So this is the thing that's saying to add the the widget to the screen, to the viewport. So once it's added the widget, we want it to set the game to paused. Okay, and then we want that pause to be ticked. Okay, so essentially everything that's going on in the background of the game will be paused. And then we want it to set show mouse, but this is always a weird one because we need to turn off context sensitive. So set show mouse cursor. And we want that to be on. But that won't be everything because it needs something into here, which, bear with me a mo, which is going to be get player controller. I always forget that one. Yeah, I had to look that one up. Get player controller. All right, let's compile that. And it still doesn't like it. Okay, one sec. I do always have problems with this one. Get player. So basically, notice there's two get player controllers. That's the player state one. And that's not the player state one. It likes the one that's not the player state one. Weird, I know. Right, so let's try that. Push play. Come over here, get caught, and here we go. Our mouse is there, and we can push retry, and it will spawn us back to the beginning. Okay, really annoying that get player controller thing. That's why I always have problems with it. But let's just go back to that to confirm. So I reiterate that because I kind of was going back and forth a little bit. Don't pull out from here. Okay, just right click in the empty space. Context sensitive needs to be off. Type in get player controller, but don't go for the one in player state that it tries to recommend you. Go for the one up there. Okay, great. So that's working fine. So we can get caught. We can, we have a main HUD. All we need to do now is set one up so that when we reach a destination, it says, you know, well, the one says we've escaped. So I haven't really set my map up that well for this, but we'll have it over here or something. So let's go back to, well, I don't know where I would put this one in, what I've got so far. I'll just put it into, I was going to put it in loosely. I know that's not very good, but we want to create a new blueprint, which is going to be an actor. And we're going to say, call it game win or something. Okay, so let's open that up. All this is going to be is a box collision. There we go. Let's make it a bit larger. That's all it needs to be. Well, we'll maybe add something to that in a second. In the event graph, get rid of those ones. Click on the box, and we want an event for the box, collision event, a begin overlap. So when we begin overlapping the box, it's going to, hopefully you guessed it, create widget and add to viewport. That's great, set that up again. We don't have the widget for that yet. So let's go over to UI, create another user interface, which is going to be for the escaped HUD. And I'll be doing this quickly now. Add the canvas, add the image. The image is going to be escaped this time. Full screen. Anchor it to full screen. Compile that. Back to this one. That's going to be escaped. Okay, that's it. So when we just basically when we overlap that box, it comes up saying we've escaped. Brilliant. So if we just drag in that game win into here, we can scale it here as well. basically when my player, if I can avoid all the drones, when we reach this area here, it says you've escaped. But obviously at the moment, it's obviously not very clear to the player where they need to go. So what I'm going to do is just go back to my game win thing here. In the viewport, I'm going to add some text renderer. And you can see there's some text above it. And just for the purposes of this, you could do this much differently. I'm going to say extraction point. Oh, sorry, that's variable name. Type that into the wrong thing. Text extraction point. There we go. And of course, you can change this. Let's make it really bright pink so it's really obvious. Rotate that around. Okay. What also might be nice, if we go back to this as well, is get the text and we can add the rotating movement. Compile that. So when we push play, let's run back over here again. See it's rotating, extraction point, boom, you've escaped. Okay, and then obviously you could add a button there in the same way that kind of just quit the game or something. I don't know. Again, that's kind of up to you. You can customize this to do whatever you want it to do, whatever you want it to say. Again, that's going to be something that can be unique to you. So, been quite a long video, this one, but we've gone through quite a lot. So we've created a main HUD that displays the quest on the screen. We've got a HUD which, when we get captured, it has a button that says we can retry, and we've got one which is when we've escaped, when we've reached the destination, the extraction point. So again, it's going to be, based on your map design. It's going to depend on how this kind of feels, how the game plays, and everything. It's going to be unique to you. So yeah, have some fun with that. Be creative, and hopefully it all goes well, and then we can move on to something new in the next one.